Hello, today we're going to walk through how you can import categories from into your Kodaris PIM via external ID. Now this is handy if you say want to export product categories from a different PIM into the Kodaris PIM, and you want to use your unique identifier from your other PIM instead of the category code which is used by default in the Kodaris PIM for importing and exporting. So let me show you what I mean real quick. Let's go to the Kodaris PIM here and then go to categories. Now I have no categories here, but let me add one quick just for demonstration purposes. So, and as we demonstrated in previous videos, you can import and export sheets of categories into this PIM that will show up on your website. And by default, when you import and export, the Kodaris PIM uses the category code as a unique identifier for that category. So for example, I could have a spreadsheet of product categories that I want to import here, and because steel is already in the Kodaris PIM, if I have a row in my sheet with a column of steel for the code, and I have an updated name, let's just call it steel and drywall, the Kodaris system would see that code of steel and then go ahead and find this record in the Kodaris PIM and update the name to be steel and drywall here. That works very well. However, there are some use cases where you might not be able to use the code column as a unique identifier. For example, maybe you're exporting from a different PIM, and maybe the category codes coming from that PIM are not always going to be the same every time. Maybe they're randomly generated, maybe they're a string of numbers that may change, maybe you have to truncate the codes before moving them into the Kodaris PIM. There's a lot of different use cases for this. What you can do is export your categories from your other PIM with a unique identifier that you know is the same and will not change. And then import that unique identifier along with the rest of the information about your categories into the Kodaris PIM. And then whenever you do another export from that other PIM into the Kodaris PIM, you can keep including that external identifier and choose to import by external identifier here in the Kodaris PIM so that you're always updating your categories and keying on that identifier of your choice instead of using the code here. So let's go ahead and demonstrate how that works. First, I'm going to go to the columns here so we can display our external ID column. It's right here. I'm going to go ahead and select it. And as we can see, for this category, it's blank, which is obvious because I did not add an external ID when I added this category. I'm going to go ahead and remove this category as well, since I just added that to show you guys. We're going to actually import some from a different PIM. So let's go look at a sheet that I've exported from a different PIM. Here's the sheet of product categories from that PIM, and as you can see, here are my column headers, and I've exported the category code, which in my use case, the code may not always be the same every time that I export. Then I have my category name, and finally my unique identifier from that other PIM that uniquely identifies each category here. The code and the name could change, but the ID that I've exported from that other PIM will always stay the same. And this is the ID that I would like to use when I import and export categories from the Kodaris PIM as well. So before importing this, we first have to make sure that our sheet headers here match what the Kodaris PIM expects. And what I've done is I've actually exported a sample sheet from the Kodaris PIM. and then I've opened it up in Google Sheets to see what the column headers are. So let's show that real quick. Here's my sample sheet from the Kodaris PIM, and the column headers are code, name, and then finally external ID. This is the column we're looking for when we import and export our categories. So let's hop back over to our sheet and change the column headers to match. Alright, they look good. Now let's go ahead and save this sheet as a CSV. And hop over to the Kodaris PIM. And now what we're going to do is we're going to choose an external ID importer. As I mentioned before, usually the Kodaris system is going to key on the category code, and if you're fine with that, you'll want to go ahead and choose these create and update or create only or update only importers. However, we want to key on the external ID that we've just set and not the category code, as those may change. So let's go ahead and select external ID and choose our sheet that we saved as a CSV and give it a couple minutes. Alright, it's been a few minutes, and as you can see here, I've refreshed the grid here and we do see our imported categories. And if we scroll over to the side here and select our external ID column, we can see that the external ID has indeed been set. Now, when we do other imports from our Kodaris, our external PIM, let's just say it's a month later and I need to update the Kodaris PIM with the latest export from my other PIM. What I'll do is I'll head over to my other PIM. I'll run the export, being sure to include that ID, and then I will import it here using the external ID, and it should key on the ID instead of the category codes. So let's demonstrate that real quick. This is a spreadsheet I've exported from my other PIM a month later. And as you can see, we do have some updates to our product categories that were made in that other PIM. We have some changed category codes. Drywall has been changed to awesome drywall, and this one has been changed to great stud, awesome drywall, exclamation point. So we do have quite a few changes here, and what we'll want to do is we'll import this sheet, making sure that we select to import by our external ID here, and then the Kodaris system should update the codes on our drywall to be awesome drywall, and so on. So let's go ahead and change these headers to match what the Kodaris PIM expects. We'll change this to external ID. And let's go ahead and export to the CSV. Pop over to Kodaris PIM, and we'll go ahead and select our external ID importer. And select our sheet and import it. Alright, it's been a few minutes and I refreshed the grid here. And as you can see, the Kodaris system did go and find these two records by the external ID, and it found them and it went ahead and changed the category codes and the name. Alright, hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.